Hey guys, welcome back to JDUB-Woodworks. So today I've got this nice little piece of driftwood right here. It's about 6 feet tall, weighs maybe about 45, 50 pounds. I'm gonna clean up the back side of this, the front as well. Gonna create some abstract art here, and I'm gonna show you how amazing driftwood art can actually be if you put a little bit of work into it. So stick around, it's gonna be fun. Let's go make a mess. All right, we got a little hole in here now. And I don't know why, but I like this design. I always have, just something circular. But let me get you up close, let me show you. So remember, it's driftwood, right? So it's not a hardwood. And I've got this whole top piece. You can see where the sand, the sand was all the way inside there. Now, that being said, this is still salvageable, but if that had been any deeper, it could have just cracked right down the middle. So that's part of it, right? This feels pretty stable, unlike some of the other pieces that I've worked with. It's still soft. I've got this piece right here that I'm gonna need to mess with. Yeah. Just like that. See, and you can see where those little beetles, I'm gonna show you. You can see inside there, right? And this is just shredded wood inside. I don't know if that's a termite or some type of some kind of boring beetle that just digs in there, and then it just makes the wood really unstable. This is the third piece that I've worked with in over a month, in less than a month, I mean, where I've had this issue. So that can be pretty frustrating, which is also why I haven't been putting out any big products lately, because I work on them and then they crack. So that's super frustrating. All right, so now, because of the thinness and because there's some unstable wood, I'm not gonna use the grinder anymore. I am going to switch to about a 40 grit piece of sandpaper on just a oscillating sander and see if we can get this shaved down and start rounding it out a little bit. So stick around. All right, I'm going to have to use this sander. I didn't have any more 40 grit discs, so we'll use this one, which is fine. So all of that you saw with the sander is all about smoothing and shaping. So the grinder did what it was supposed to do, and the rest of this I do with just a very coarse grit sandpaper. Now in the videos that I did as a course, as a series, that 1, 2, and 3, I had the grinding, shaping, and then sanding, shaping. So that's the stage that I'm in right now. There's still a lot of work to do. But you can see that 40 grit really does a number on the edges. There's still going to be a few like this that I'm going to go back with a lighter grit sandpaper, because I don't want to take too much wood off. And then let me lift this up. It's much lighter now, by the way. So all of those edges I've just tried to smooth out and make them a little bit more round. Now, they don't have to be perfectly cylinder. You're not going to get every little blemish out of a piece of driftwood. You're just not. The more you sand on it, the more holes will pop up, or you'll see another layer of wood that's cracking. I'm okay with leaving some of that. I mean, if it's significant, I'll try to sand it down like I did right here. There was a big crack. I just kind of notched it out with a sander. You know, so the base of this, I'll probably cut flat so I can mount it upright, but you get the general idea. So now I'm just gonna work my way back up through the higher grit sandpaper. And this is gonna require some resin work as well, because I've got a pretty significant crack right in here. So I can put some resin in there and that'll hold that down together. And we should be in pretty good shape. So all of that took about, oh man, 2 hours. That included the introduction, the chainsaw, the grinder, and the sanding. So we'll just see what we got in store. But I'm gonna keep working the sandpaper and then we'll get to the final stages on this thing. All right, so once I used the air compressor, I started seeing some spots that I could pull out some of the dirt. There's some old shredded wood in that little pocket there. And of course, as I use the air compressor, I find more holes, more pockets, more cracks, more cleaning. And so it goes with working with driftwood, especially a soft piece like this. So I've got more resin work that I'm gonna have to do, which is not a big deal. I use an epoxy thickener when I do the resin, because this is it's a vertical application, and I don't want resin to be pouring all over my tailgate or shop or wherever it is that I'm at. So I just hit this with a little bit of the Maya Blue, the epoxy thickener, and we're gonna let that sucker sit and dry, and then we'll start sanding it off as soon as we're ready. All right, so we've got all the resin on. Now granted, the temperature in Central Texas is in the high 90s. We'll hit 100 today. Resin doesn't like that kind of heat, just like it doesn't like cold. So we'll see. This may end up being a disaster because of the temperature, because it can cure too quickly. It can get tacky. I don't have to worry about it being cloudy because I've got the thickener in there. So at any rate, that's what we've got. So I'm gonna have to let that dry. It'll dry for a few days. Hopefully this will turn out. You know, those holes in the back after I use the compressor were a little disappointing, but we'll see. I think we'll be in good shape. All right, so our resin is completely dried on our piece. You can tell that I've got a lot of cleanup to do, and I can see that I missed a lot of different holes. That may be okay. I may end up going back and adding some more. But basically what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start, because this wood is so soft, I'm gonna start with an 80 grit. I might even go 120. I don't wanna remove a whole lot of body. I just wanna sand down the resin. So I'm gonna find the right number there, and then I'm just gonna work on up until I've got all of this smoothed out, all of it cleaned up. I'll catch some of it on time lapse. Other than that, it's me sanding, guys. It's pretty boring. Anyway, let's go do it. All right, so that's going on a full hour and 15 minutes, all on 80 grit. That 80 was what I needed to get this sanded down, the resin sanded down. I do want to show you, this is the problem with using resin on a really soft piece of driftwood. So the resin is going to stay in those lower spots, but if you notice, everywhere that I get the epoxy resin, it stains the wood. Now this was a darker shade already, but let me see if I can show you. Okay, here's a good example on this inside piece. I just needed a couple little holes filled in right here, but everywhere that resin was, you can see this stain. Now, you would just say, well, just keep sanding and sanding it out. Well, that's true, except the more I sand, it's going to expose a crack. It'll expose another layer of wood or another wormhole. And so I've done this before on darker pieces. It's really difficult to camouflage on a light piece like this. This is a great example right here. Filling in a crack, it stayed in the hole, but I filled in another little couple of divots right here, and now I've got this big stain. Light pieces of driftwood and resin so far have been a huge challenge for me. I'm going to continue to sand on this, working my way from 80 up to about 320, and see if I can get some of that cleaned up. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. So this got opened up. All of these little holes weren't there yesterday when I put the resin on there, or day before yesterday when I put the resin on. So those are all new holes, right? So and then of course I sanded some of the resin out of this hole, and this one needs more resin. And I still haven't been able to get all the stains out. Now that's with an 80, 120, 180, 240, and a 320. And the more and more I sanded, the more little holes popped up. Are the holes a big deal? No, but that's the whole reason why I put resin in there in the first place. Well, actually it was to fix that crack. But I figured, well, let's go ahead and hit it in the holes. So let's turn this thing around. Let me show you on the front side. I also opened up this hole. There's some more holes. This needs more resin. Bottom line is, I'm not done. I'm gonna have to do some more resin work on this. Not super happy about that, because that's just a time suck, you know? And then you go back and you have to sand it all over again. But overall, I mean, the piece is smooth. It looks really nice. I don't normally stain driftwood, but for this piece, if these holes don't clean up, I won't stain it, but I may use something that's going to really do a darker penetration on this, and that way the holes don't stand out as much. I don't know. It's hard to tell right now. I'm a little bit frustrated. It's hot as hell, and anyway, let's keep going. Driftwood. So I'm going back to the Minwax polyacrylic. What is that going to do? It's going to give it a little bit of a shine. It's going to make these kind of duller resin pieces kind of pop, and it will still protect this wood. This is an interior piece anyway, so I don't have to worry about anything on the exterior. So let's go ahead and start applying that. I'm going to apply it to the back first with just a seal coat, which is a super light coat, and then we'll go and get thicker coats as we go along. All right, so just a brush application. And again, this first coat is a seal coat. So nice and light. This will help seal the piece. You can see how it does help with the resin as well. The thing about using the polyacrylic is it will not change the tone of the wood. What I mean by that is it may darken it just a little bit, but the color tone is not going to be jeopardized to where I'm taking it to a much darker color. And so this still has very much a very blonde look and appeal to it. Even though it may not be white blonde, it's still blonde. So I'm just going to keep putting that on there. This first coat will go over the entire surface, front and back. And then I can go back with a second coat that's more thick. So a true first coat, so to speak. And then I will sand once that second coat is dry. I can go back with a very high grit sandpaper, typically anything above 320, just to knock any of the bubbles that are on the surface down. And then we'll start getting into some finishing coats where it goes on just really, really smooth. And then the final coat, I'm gonna do one more sand before I do the final coat, and then we'll be good to go. So. All right, so it's been about 12 hours since I started messing with this, and I wanted to show you what this looks like kind of close up. You can see that there's a little bit of a sheen And if you feel it, it's completely dry, but it's not completely smooth. So you'll just feel little bumps, little ripples. I think I've got a small drip right here. You can barely see it. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a 320 grit sandpaper over the entire piece, front, back, sides, inside, all of that. And then wipe it down with a little tack cloth. And then we'll apply the final 2 coats. After those 2 coats, I will sand again, and then we'll see if we need to touch it up. That last piece of sanding, I actually end up using about an 800 grit, just to see if I can get that any shinier and make sure that that gloss is looking really nice and pretty. So that's where we're at. I wanted to show you real quick, but I've got a couple of little drips right there, and that's okay. As you're putting this last coat, you can see another one right there. Obviously this is standing straight up and down, but as you're putting on the coats a little bit thicker, you're gonna run into that. You're gonna have some little drips here and there. Keep in mind, you're gonna go back and sand this one more time. The amount of pressure that I put on the brush is very, very light. It's really gentle. And because this goes on so clear, it's real hard to see where you've put the polyacrylic and where you have it. It goes on milky, but it quickly will dry. And so what I tend to do is I'll get where the light, you can see where the light is here, and I can see if there's a dry spot. See, it looks a little dry right there. I'm gonna catch that on the final coat. But I just go down the arm and I can tell that I've gotten that one pretty good. This all looks good down here. You can start seeing that shine, right? So this is coming along real nice. When you're applying the polyacrylic, just take your time. Don't use a whole lot of product, because it'll do that right there. So that's something that I'm gonna have to sand. But that gives you a pretty good idea of the application of all this. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is tomorrow morning, I'll do a sand and a final application, and then we are done. All right, y'all, it's been a long journey, right? But we are done with sanding, we are done with resin, we are done with polyacrylic. We're just done, right? So now it's time to mount this. A lot of you have asked me, where do I get my bases from when I mount these bigger pieces? Well, I'm no welder, but I learned and taught myself just how to do it. And I'm still learning. My welds are ugly, but that's what a grinder's for. So I have already mounted, or I've already drilled these holes. I've already got the base. We're gonna go show you that here in a second. And I've got a special surprise for you too. And it has to do something with this centerpiece and that cutout, and I'll show you here in just a second. So what I use is I use some liquid nails. After I've drilled the holes, those are about 7 inches deep, each one of them. Doesn't have to be 7, especially for a piece like this. It's really, really light. But I'll take this goop and very gently stick it in there, and it doesn't take much. I'll put that on both sides. Quite honestly, I've already mounted it once, and just to see if the holes lined up, and it was tight enough where I probably didn't even need to put any pookie in there, but I decided to anyway. So there we go. This can get really messy, so be careful. You can wear gloves if you want to, but it's really not necessary. And look, I've still got a lot on there, so I'm wasting that. But now it's time to mount, and it's time to show you what the surprise is, so come on. All right, so here's my metal base. So I've got a steel plate down here at the bottom. I've got my 2 rods that are mounting into the main piece. And then this has already been grinded and smoothed out and painted. And then I've got this piece here, which I will show you here in a minute what that's for. And let's go ahead and get our piece and mount this sucker. All right, the moment of truth. All right, 1 second. Now, if you remember in the very beginning of the video, I cut a hole right in the middle of this whole thing, right? So I cut that piece out. And day before yesterday or 3 days ago, I can't remember, I was walking around the backyard. I found that piece and I was just about to throw it in the bonfire, and then something clicked. So I have refinished that piece, and I'm gonna mount it inside the gap of this piece. So I'm gonna return this back to the place where it came from. And it's, I didn't do any resin. I sanded it down to a 320, and then I put multiple coats of polyacrylic just like this piece. And so I think mounting that sucker right in here will just look like it's floating. And I think it's just gonna look spectacular. So let me get my drill, we'll mount it. All right, y'all, it's done. That's it. This thing has been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm not sure what I'm going to call this piece, but if you have any ideas, make sure and leave them below in the comment section. Goes for any questions that you might have. Give me a thumbs up. I'm super responsive to comments and emails. Check out our website. Check out our apparel. We've got some JDUB hats and shirts that are really cool for driftwood lovers. Anyway, I'm just glad you could be a part of the journey. Thanks a lot. Y'all take care. God bless.